Hi everyone, it's Indicia. Tonight I've got a fun question for you. Why is Slytherin so popular here in Japan? Honestly, among my Japanese friends, it feels like Slytherin is super loved, nearly kind of worshipped, really. So in this video, I want to have a little chat about why so many people here adore Slytherin and maybe uncover some interesting reasons behind it. So now let's be honest. One of the biggest reasons Slytherin is so adored in Japan comes down to the films, and more specifically the cast. Of course, J.K. Rowling created these brilliant three-dimensional characters, but the way the actors brought them to life was nothing short of magical. Personally, I always loved Emma Watson as Hermione and David Thewlis as Professor Lupin, both absolutely spot on, but in Japan, the Slytherin actors in particular have this massive fan base. Tom Felton as Draco Malfoy and the late Alan Rickman as Professor Snape, they are easily in the top 5 most popular Harry Potter actors over here. And honestly, I can see why. They really embody that cool, slightly dangerous Slytherin vibe, and they've got the acting chops to back it up. Tom Felton, for instance, was so convincing as Draco that when the films first came out, he actually got bullied at school by kids who thought he really was Malfoy. But years later, in 2009, when he came to Japan to promote Half-Blood Prince, he arrived at Narita airport and was stunned to see the huge crowd. At first he thought, oh wow, someone important must be arriving. Like Tom Felton, for instance, was so convincing as Draco that when the films first came out, he actually got bullied at school by kids who thought he really was Malfoy. But years later, in 2009, when he came to Japan to promote Half-Blood Prince, he arrived at Narita airport and was stunned to see the huge crowd. At first he thought, oh wow, someone important must be arriving, and then he realized they were all waiting for him. That moment really shows just how beloved Draco is in Japan. And it's not just Draco. Snape has always been at the top of Japanese popularity polls, usually number 1 by a landslide. He starts off as this nasty, suspicious teacher who might even be working for Voldemort. But in the final story, we learn he's been protecting Harry all along, driven by this heartbreaking lifelong love for Lily. Even though he was cruel at times, that loyalty and regret made him one of the most complex and unforgettable characters in the series. And Alan Rickman's performance was so iconic that even after his passing, Snape's popularity in Japan has never faded. What really stands out though is how much love the actors themselves have for their roles. Jason Isaacs, who played Lucius Malfoy, actually helped shape the character's look in the films. His ideas were taken on board for Lucius' design. That passion shines through, and I think that's why even the so-called villains became fan favorites here in Japan, because the actors didn't just play them as storybook characters, but as real, complicated human beings. Like, another point worth mentioning is Japan's unique culture of finding villains cool or attractive. As Tom Felton once talked about, kids around the world often struggle to separate actors from their roles. He's actually still receiving hate letters from children even now. But as I said earlier, that's really a testament to how convincing his acting was. But interestingly, in Japan, even kids loved Tom as Draco. When I was in elementary school and watching Harry Potter with my classmates, there were were at least 3 or 4 girls who were seriously crashing on him. But personally, I'd argue the main reason is simply that Tom was just too handsome. But I also feel that Japan has this cultural groundwork where villains equal cool. In Japanese traditional theater like kabuki, there's this deeply rooted idea that a role is just a role. So people naturally separate the actor from the character. At the same time, in Harry Potter, many of the villains aren't just evil. They are written with complex, layered emotions, and combined with their refined visuals, that makes them incredibly appealing. But speaking of the visuals, characters like Lucius Malfoy or Bellatrix Lestrange are really popular here. Personally, I really love Narcissa Malfoy's look. Even her wand is so stylish, but in the story, pureblood families are treated almost like aristocrats in real life, like wealthy elite households like the Malfoys or the Blacks. And you can really see that refinement in the costumes. For example, when I went to Warner Brothers studio tour in London, the detailing on the Malfoy's family's clothing was insane. Even my mom, who doesn't know a single thing about Harry Potter, said, "Wow, these outfits are amazing. Whose are they?" With the embroidery, the length of the coats, the lining, the decoration, it was all gorgeous. Since I've always been into goth fashion myself, I especially found the Slytherin characters' wands to be incredibly cool. Narcissus' wand in particular is so beautiful. I honestly wanted to engrave my name into it for myself. Also, Helen McCrory's hair color in the films, I loved it. In a way, she's like a pioneer of inner color highlights before they even existed. Lucius Malfoy's wand and Voldemort's wand are also really popular in Japan. Like I said earlier, even the dark side characters in Harry Potter are written with a lot of depth. In the movie, some parts get cut down, but for example, Draco being ordered to kill for the sake of his family, clinging to life more desperately than anyone else. These details make their characters feel three-dimensional. And this isn't unique to Harry Potter. Japanese media often portrays villains with tragic pasts, like Doflamingo in One Piece or Akaza in Demon Slayer. So audience here doesn't really feel resistant to villains. Instead, they often sympathize with them. I think what matters more to Japanese fans isn't which side the character is on, but what kind of emotion and personal journey the characters carry with them. So next, let's talk about Salazar Slytherin's philosophy. And before I dive in, let me just say, this is absolutely not about supporting discrimination. But what I noticed is quite a few Japanese fans actually sympathize with his original idea. In the book, Slytherin valued pure blood heritage when choosing students, and because of that, a lot of Slytherin naturally focus more on family background than on individual qualities. Now, of course, this is shown as prejudice in the story, but in the wizarding world, it's also something that's fairly normal. In fact, families like the Weasleys, who are warm and open towards Muggle-borns, are kind of exception. So, why do some people find this philosophy relatable in Japan? Well, To me, it is really similar to the idea of village society here. Especially in traditional Japanese workplaces, you still see seniority systems, like where you must respect your seniors and basically what the boss says goes. And honestly, this sometimes leads to harassment or power abuse because the group unity becomes so strong that speaking out against it feels almost impossible. There's even a manga called 明日私は誰かの彼女 that shows how suffocating this village society can be. Like, especially for women, it's something a lot of Japanese viewers recognize their own lives. There's even a manga called 明日私は誰かの彼女 that shows how suffocating this village society can be, especially for women. It's something a lot of Japanese viewers recognize in their own lives. But now, of course, Hogwarts isn't Japan. Slytherins aren't exactly following strict seniority or anything like that. But because Japan is such a homogeneous island-based culture with one dominant language and a strong sense of us, many people here naturally relate to the Slytherin way of valuing heritage, connections, and inner circle's loyalty. And finally, I'd like to talk about something that only the die-hard Harry Potter fans really appreciate: the characters who never actually made it into the films. Now, obviously, the movies had time limits, so a lot of things had to be cut or simplified. But it means that some incredibly important characters were either reduced to a name or photograph or skipped entirely. Like, take Regulus Black for example. In the films, he's just a name on a family tree or just a picture as Sirius' younger brother. But in the books, he's absolutely essential. Even though he dies before Deathly Hallows begins, he's the one who figures out Voldemort's secret, and he's the one who tries to destroy the locket. And his story ties into the theme that no matter what mistakes you've made, it's never too late to choose the right path. Another case is Marietta Edgecombe. In the films, they rewrote her part, making it seem like Cho Chang betrayed Dumbledore's army, but in the books, it's Marietta, Cho's friend, who's actually informs on them. And that was caused the rift between Cho and Harry. Cho tried to defend her friend, and Harry refused to open up about Cedric's death. Suddenly, their relationship feels a lot more tragic and complicated. And that's really the beauty of the books. Even minor characters, people who never show up in the screen, have so much depth, so much human complexity. And that's why even now you'll find fans who absolutely adore these invincible characters. It shows just how rich and layered Rowling's world really is. So tonight I've shared a little of my own Gryffindor perspective on why Slytherins has become so popular here in Japan. And honestly, both in the books and in the films, Slytherin really does have this unique charm. What I really love is how often the characters are caught in that space between light and dark. They struggle, they make mistakes, and yet they are fascinating. Even the one who lean more towards pure evil still have charisma, and you can't help but be drawn to them. And of course, the actors who brought those roles to life, people in Japan absolutely adore him. Alright, so that's all for today. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.